and welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. I am your host, Satinder Kaur. Our guests are from different industries and functions. They will share their experience, strategies, and the changing landscape to help you take the service operations of your business to the next level. Hi, Jay. So it's been a bit of a technology challenge for us, and I think this is the third time that we're trying to now, record, and we hope that this goes fine. So, welcome to the Service Operations Podcast. And to get started, you can tell us briefly about your journey up to the innovation that you did with the bank where you work.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Satinder. It's wonderful to speak with you and understand a lot of things about service and operations and why those things are important for any service oriented organization. In fact, for everybody else as well. So I started off my corporate journey in a service setup as well. It was for a very brief period just after my graduation. I worked for Dell for some time in their call center operations, and I was taking customer calls to help them, with their technical issues around their personal and business computing products. So that's how it started, and that gave me the first exposure of what service means, what office looks like, and why is it important for you to be able to understand and have empathy for the customer and how to solve it and so on, and what are the tools at your discretion. And there I learned the biggest tool that you have at your discretion is listening and empathy.
Hmm.
Really, even today, I face those issues when I have a personal, let's say, exigency with any of the products that I use, and I call them up, or I try to reach out, and I still feel that that is what is lacking. You have all the modern tools available with you, chatbots, AI tools, but nothing can actually replace empathy and listening capacity. So anyone with that in their left and right pockets will come up at the top of the game. And then every other tool is built around those. So that's where I
Yeah.
started. And then, after my post graduation, I, asked for a job which would allow me to be uh, flexible with tech and finance, which allows me to understand a little bit of finance. So I was never a finance guy,
Hmm.
and I was never a tech guy either. So I studied operations. So I ended up being in a team in operations, which was doing innovations, and that team had a fantastic leader, and we were doing some next level stuff at that time. uh, People were always amazed at as what is it that you guys do and why is it that you do. A lot of people saw it as edge of the horizon kind of a thing, that oh, you guys are
Hmm.
so way forward looking that in the future that implementing those things today is very tough. But what it enabled us, to look ahead in the future and bring back those products today. So I know for a fact that ICICI Bank then, and the group was one of the first to actually use chatbots, Twitter bots, Twitter banking, Facebook banking. These things were done like 10, 11 years back. I mean, and a lot of organizations still struggle with implementing those well even today. And the technology has seen a sea change in terms of adaptability and ease of use and integration and so on. But the key thing always remained, and as a team, we always had a clear agenda. Some of the projects were inward looking, which were for the internal customers, so our colleagues and different teams who would interact with customers, especially even in call centers. We ran a lot of projects to help them do their jobs much better in the physical world, where you have equipments and devices and machines like kiosks. So those are the things that we always looked out for.
So how did you decide? I mean, like, see, what is forward looking? Let's put it that way. So how did you decide that these are the projects that you should take up? Because I can relate to what you're saying. Sometimes what you do is too far away. It's like you haven't seen it before, and you wonder whether it'll work or not work, and everyone says, "Oh, what a waste of time." How do you decide
Absolutely.
what are the projects?
So I would say it was a mix of there was no template, so to say, which existed for innovation. Even now, there are some broad frameworks of managing innovation within the organization, and some of those come from different industries like manufacturing and so on, from where actually innovation and technological progress actually started off. uh, we used to have internal team sessions where we used to brainstorm and figure out which are those things which would matter to us most. So as a team and as an organization, so every year, or every couple of years, the organization had a certain vision. So at certain points of time, it was three C's, clarity, um, uh,
Capital,
and capital and
something like that.
something
Yeah.
else. Yeah. So every 2 3 years we would have those kind of mid term visions, long term visions, and we as a team would align our thoughts to those, saying, okay, how do we fit as a team there, and how is it that we can enable that vision, and what does that vision mean for us as a team. And we were
Hmm.
a small team, like 8 9 10 people. So we really had one, we inverted that in ourselves. We really absorbed, saying, okay, we really want to be the drivers of innovation in the organization. So one was cultural. We always believed that we are the only ones driving innovation, that there's no one else. So if we do not believe that, we are not going to drive it well. So we really believe that we are going to be driving those edge of the horizon things, that moonshot projects. How we selected them was a mix of objectivity and subjectivity. When we say objectivity, we would look at existing problem sets, how frequently those are occurring within the organization, as to how large the problem is. We would try to give numerical values to those problems. So let's say if it's a invert call center related problem, and there is something that they are looking to dramatically change, is it IVR related? So we were not looking at the process, we were trying to dramatically change things. So then we
Hmm.
were exploring things like automated voice recognition. So we got a team from an overseas company who is at like the top notch job, does they do the best work in voice recognition and authentication. So that is what we brought in. We said, okay, there is a problem with your IVR registration and that process, so let's do this.
Yeah.
One is the problem sizing bit, the other of course is the intent of being the technology leader. So that was always
Hmm.
a driving force for us as a team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what I understood and what you said is that one is that you innovate to solve existing problems, the problems that you see within the company, and one is that you probably, which you didn't say so directly, but what I presume is that you're looking forward for the best that is available in the maybe in the world, so to say, or in the industry, you can say. So it's a combination of both the solving the problem as well as getting the best out of that's available.
Absolutely, because we realize that no team is doing, because every individual team looks to solve their own problem, or maybe innovate in their own vertical. So somebody handling the call center would look at the latest technology available for running the IVR, maybe do something fancy around running automated campaigns, turn inward sales service calls into sales call. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so
Hmm,
those kind
hmm,
of things are driven by verticals within
hmm,
themselves. We as a team realize that there is a huge gap and there is a deficit of technology which bridges this gap, and that is where
Mm.
we said, okay, let's try to figure those things out which nobody is possibly looking at.
Yeah.
So some of the projects like the tab banking that came out of the team,
Mm.
something on, next, then it was very fancy DD printing. We also experimented with payments on QR, which eventually became another industry altogether, payments by
Yeah.
QR. So we were
Mm.
always looking at those solutions which we thought nobody internally is looking at, and we always had business teams as sponsors. So we see something which is fancy, we realize. So it was always a mix of those things.
Yeah. So it also happens that when you're innovating, it is not necessary that you will get a result and that result will get implemented. And that's what the other teams do. So if you're looking at a particular product, you'll be focused around that product only, and you'll only do the incremental changes that are required over there, whereas when you innovate in the real sense, you bring about something which could be drastically different, and it's also possible that you might do 10 things out of which only one might get used.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is what was our biggest criticism. And I
Wow.
think is the biggest criticism of all innovation, so to say, centralized innovation or project teams is you guys do a lot of moonshots, out of which only one or two, are decent or big enough
Yeah.
to succeed. Uh,
Yeah.
but the thing is, those moonshot projects actually drive the culture in the organization,
Hmm.
and it makes you and your organization stand apart. And it takes a certain kind of vision at the top to realize this fact as a
Hmm.
concept, that yes, this concept is important for my organization because I want to be there.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of competitor banks don't have that kind of vision. They do things in technology because they have to do, not because they want to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the difference shows even today you see, massive public downtimes which get reported in the media, and things like that. So a lot of organizations suffer because they did not have that kind of long term vision, and they did not, let's say, culturally invest in having that innovation as a driver within the organization. So it does make a difference, and we did a lot of smaller projects as well. So when I say small, it's from a large organization perspective. If I were to make these products today, I would definitely get them funded from some VC outside. That I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
so there are
even
benefits of a large organization. So you are, you're a small team in a large group. So you are, in a way, taken care of. You have the direction, or as you say, blessings from the senior management that okay, yeah, you're allowed to make a few mistakes, and this may not be possible in a very fund crunched company, or also a small organization.
yes, yes. So definitely that has been always the case. Even now, a lot of those, uh, edge technologies are being adopted mostly by larger organizations instead of smaller ones. The smaller ones are innovating, and that's where there is this whole industry of fintech which has come up, which says, okay, because the technology is evolving so fast, and we understand that it's difficult for you to innovate at the same pace. Here we are innovating. Let's join hands, and I think yeah, so a lot of collaboration is happening. So a lot of innovation has actually moved out of the bank. So I believe a
Mm.
lot of those financial and core financial product and probably even service related would stay there. But you
Mm.
see a lot of innovations happening outside. So Freshworks,
Yeah.
for example, it's a product company which focuses on service, right?
Yes.
So, and we
Yes.
are so proud that a service based product company is now listed, and it is so heartening to see, because the moment you talk about service as
Mm.
a product, like as a concept, saying,
Yes.
oh, service happens after the sale happens.
Mm.
But here things have turned around, which says, no, service itself is a product.
Yes.
So if you do not sell your service well,
Hmm.
along with the product.
Hmm.
And this applies even to physical products nowadays. So there are a lot of
Hmm.
D2C brands which are operating, which sell their service, not only the product. Say, okay,
Hmm.
this is what I am offering, and along with this, you get something else as well.
Hmm.
So lifetime something as a
Yeah.
service. So it has been very nicely wrapped into the product, and now service has become an integral part of the whole sales journey.
Yeah, actually, everything has, today in many areas, you cannot distinguish between a product and a process, and because a product and process have merged. That's one. Second is the service has also merged with the product and the process. So it's not like how you said, that first you have a sale, then you have service, then you have, it doesn't follow any sequence. Now it's everything starts together. In fact, I think onboarding is the moment you start, service starts there. It is not that you onboard a customer and then you will start something. No, it's expected maybe even before the onboarding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the last, I was building a payment gateway, uh, and I kept on repeating this often to the product managers and the engineering team that look, the moment the customer sees my first page is the moment my product is being consumed. Don't think
Hmm.
that the login page is a dead page. That
Yeah.
page is very, very important because X% of fallouts happen from that page.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah. Yeah.
each and that's service, it's not yet even the product. So somebody who's trying to
Yeah.
come and consume my payment gateway,
Hmm.
how he onboards, and you spoke about the onboarding journey. That journey has nothing to do with the end product that he's going to
No.
consume,
Yeah.
right? So that journey itself is a product,
Yes.
and that,
Yes.
that is what we are seeing in emerging fintechs and startups, is that uh, we are realizing a sea change in the way everything happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look at BNPL, like buy now pay later products. So
Yeah. Yes.
they, I mean, the product always existed, which was credit card. Buy now, pay later is something of a similar. It's a similar variant. Let's call it that way. So bankers would call it. Let's say it's a credit card kind of a product. So it's a credit line which you can pay later, minus the
Mm.
physical card. Card is an add-on.
Yeah.
The key benefit there is, and what is being sold today is, get a credit line in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were selling the efficiency bit.
So welcome back, Jay. And after the cold day in Bangalore when it was raining and then the internet went all over the place, we had to stop our conversation. And now, so we continue. We spoke about innovation and about what is the role of the team in a large organization about innovation. You were speaking about inward looking and outward looking. Tell us about that.
What I have worked on and I have assimilated is the information flows in every direction in an organization. It comes from your colleagues, your seniors, mentors. It comes from different um, stakeholders within the organization, and everybody's job kind of is to make sure that the customer's life is ultimately better, and that is uh, something which eventually builds up into what we call as products or services, and everything goes in. What the customer sees is eventually a finished tool. He doesn't know how you reach there, and he doesn't bother. um, so one aspect of it is to find those things, find those nuggets of information within the organization,
Okay.
collect it, and imbibe it within the product. So that is what I would refer as inward looking, information seeking, and inward looking approach to building a product or a service.
So
Uh,
you think that a lot of this gets generated within the company might be going waste Either we're not capturing it well, is not even sharing it with people around. So there should be some kind of an mechanism to put all this together.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of the thought process, which is what is valuable in building and having a meaningful conversation, doesn't reach the right, let's say, set of people. The guys who are actually building the product, who are responsible for eventually adding those small features which make a difference to the life of the customer, they need to know. And many times we come up with mechanisms where we have, let's say, idea gathering sessions or some online tool through which people upload their ideas. And I have been a customer of those ideas, fortunately, a couple of places where I worked, and I used to accumulate and sort and understand what the idea is around. However, I don't think the linear process does justice to the ideation that the individual would have done.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, you know what? I have come across this now. Sometimes I feel that what is spontaneous is the place and time when it should be captured. Okay, this is my
Absolutely.
thinking. But we make it a process, and then the process becomes the problem. Which so it's like you need somebody to put in some 30 fields and say, okay, what is the change and what will be the impact of the change, and then we make that person put so much of stuff in it that I think quite often it is possible that the person who gets the idea doesn't want to really go through the process.
Absolutely. I think you have hit the nail there when you said spontaneity is valuable. And of course, the lapse of time diminishes the value of the initiative in itself. Many times I have observed that I got inputs much later after I had launched the product, and in organizations where we are building things any which ways. I mean, if you get some input which is now time relevant, then that input
Yeah.
is no more useful. And that the person who has given that input feels a little dejected and it doesn't participate next time. So I think some way of spontaneous interaction also is needed. We tried some tools, but I don't think those tools were as evolved then to capture, human interaction in a very, very free flowing form. Today, we still have some, but I think a lot of work still needs to be done on the free flow of ideas and
Yeah.
information within the organization.
And just
And
like
I
we
interact.
were, sorry, just like we were speaking before the recording, it's also, I think, today, voice, just recording a quick voice message is, I think, the fastest way than sitting and typing and opening an app and putting all kinds of
Yeah,
things into it. So, yeah, I mean, that's a real capture. In fact, I remember that at some point of time when this analysis and, happens on the voice and the tone of the customer, the tone of the customer actually tells more, and whether he sighed while he was talking to you, those kind of things, they actually give a lot of information. So I think voice recording might be a good idea to collect all these changes that people want to make.
yeah. Actually, you reminded me. Few weeks back, somebody approached me. So there's a startup working on the exact similar problem where they're trying to use voice analytics for different use cases. So I suggested the same thing to them, that why don't you look at it in the service operations perspective? Uh, they were trying to implement in a B2B sales environment. I said it's very difficult. You are trying to do a person's job, and the interactions are very different. These kind of audio-based models or any kind of tools work best
Yeah.
when they are repeatable.
Hmm.
So yeah, that is one place. So the ease of sharing something, and instead of a process becoming a facilitator, it becomes the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So that is where we, get into figuring out how to facilitate the inward looking lens, and understand more within your organization so that you create real smooth runways on which people can just get on, launch their stuff. And internal tools right now is such a big thing. there are a lot of organizations, startups working towards solving the internal tooling problem.
Hmm.
So that is something which everybody should look for. So even now when I'm building, I'm trying to find first those tools which will help me run efficiently, because if my time is not efficiently used, which is
Yeah.
my biggest currency, then it's a problem for me.
So yes, so internally a lot can be tapped. Also, see, internal is not necessarily, I mean, to do with the ultimate customer. Your employee also becomes an user of things that you have created within the organization.
Yeah. So you were talking about employees as being one of the internal, let's say, the key stakeholder in any of these deliverables. So yeah, when we say inward looking, it is the focus on the employee as a customer. So how do I facilitate the person sitting in front of the customer? How do I facilitate the person interacting with the customer on a chat? Is chat the best tool, or is some other tool available? Can I do like a quick voice call instead of going through a chat? Does the call have to be through a phone, or is there some other medium? So these are some of the simple things that, when we look at it from a keen observation angle, we tend to discover that these are small problems which can really, change the way your customer is interacted with. You don't need literally huge fancy systems. These could be small assemblies, small changes. The thing is that we are so accustomed to building big things, and the example simply you put is the idea, and then
Yes,
process
there's
of
a team
gathering the
sometimes
idea
to do
becomes bigger
that.
than the idea.
Just gathering.
So
Yes.
so yeah, so around the employee, again, there are a lot of tools, toolings which are now available, which can be assembled within the organization. So if you need something very simple, short and sweet, there are platforms which
Yeah.
allow you to assemble those tools very quickly in a matter of couple of days, sometimes even hours. So you don't really need a big service provider to begin with, and it gives you all the pieces. So it's like, you just DIY
Yeah.
kit,
Yeah.
and your own in-house developers can do it. And so
Yes.
those are the tools that we need to look into in building the inward looking approach to
So one
organization
is, of
building.
course, this innovation team, a group of people who look to doing newer things, whether they are incremental or whether they are those large disruptions. We're speaking about employees. Now, what about customers? How do you get that as to that which arises from this customer feel?
I have always, worked uh, speaking in favor of the customer, and I took a lot of heat a lot of times for that. But I think that has held me in good state, where today I know that modern product management,
Yeah.
methodologies, the sole focus is on the customer. Everything else is secondary. Uh, so if you look at that, the customer involvement begins even before you have written the first line of code or the first sheet of drawing. Today, I advise people, and I do it myself. I go, if I get an idea about anything, it could be as simple as a, let's say, a new kind of podcast platform. This appears to be simple these days. It could be something as simple as a to-do list. Why would you need a to-do list? So you approach the customer, you identify who is, that you are willing to make it for. How much of it does he really value? Or are we adding features because we want to, or we think that it is valuable? And the needle has moved away from the product or the, business team deciding what the customer wants or what is his need, and doing, let's say, a survey to fit the product with the customer's need, to actually involving the customer now from the beginning of the journey. So you tend to build in public with a limited set of customers, and today I am seeing this
Hmm.
happening, and I am doing it myself with a limited set of customers. So they become your team, uh, so to say. So they are your initial team. The first 10 customers, you pick them up, you bring them inside, by way of active collaboration, uh, and you help them understand your product. You understand what they are thinking, how they are thinking, and how exactly are they going to use this. If it is a product, if you're solving someone's life problem which is existing, then again you need to know which are the top two, three problems that you need to solve. Typically, we end up making things which are like easiest for us, and we say, oh, this one, oh, this sounds very easy, and it eventually goes in a different direction. So the customer involvement with the whole uh, product or the service design aspect has become very, very important now. And uh, those are the guys who give you the best feedback, and
Hmm.
they also become your vocalist when you actually launch. So now there is two launches. One is within the initial set of customers, you get them inside, and then you refine the product. So you call them different by different names: private,
Inner circle.
previews, early users, beta, and so on. And yeah, inner circle. So different names. So we have come up with very, very nice propositions for the early vocalists. So in the product adoption curve, the innovators and the early adopters. So those guys come in, they become your users and your vocalists. Also, they become your let's say product managers. They also become your critics. So they help you grow, they help you become better, and many a time these guys ultimately one of them might join you as an employee or as a collaborator permanent.
When you're talking about making a product or creating a product, you already have a product, okay, and you want to really get the sense of what the customer's feeling. So one normal way is to do these large surveys, get these customer feedback, etc. You were talking about actually going with the salesperson to the customer. So what's that experience about, and why do you think that is necessary?
So now there is this uh, experience around building things with the customer, and then there is something where the customer is using something, and as a person or as an organization you want to see how well you are doing and what is it that you need to change to make it better, because there are some products which are there for the long, and how do you make a successful product even more successful? It's a huge challenge for product makers, product designers, business leaders, everybody. Um the thing about it is you have to deliver some incremental value, and that incremental value, should it be a small delta or should it be a large alpha? What is it that the customer appreciates? uh, Sometimes it could be as simple as adding a small button for your like, I am speaking with you, I just want to pause myself for let's say 10 seconds while the screen freezes. This is a small delta, but this has a lot about your the product itself. This is lot about your organization, the way you see it. And yet this is about the salesperson who you uh, assist in doing his job better. So let me share something from that perspective of how we get that. So in one of the organizations, I was working, we did what was called as simple sales visits.
Okay.
So I would
Yeah.
shadow the salesperson to understand what his daily life is, because that was from an inward looking perspective. I wanted to fix my process, the sales process, and see what's wrong there. Obviously, if you ask the question, what's wrong, nothing's wrong, because he's supposed to do X and he's doing, let's say, 95% of X, which is accepted, parameter of performance. Now, what if the X has to be 2X?
Yeah.
Then his performance suddenly, looks very different. uh, so when you go out with the salesperson, so when I was there in the field, I observed very different behavior of the customers, simple things which were not getting captured. So that is something which you bring from the field inside into the product building process or the service process or the product change process. So some simple things like, let's say if you are looking to increase the conversion rate of your meetings,
Yeah.
all of us do sales, so more or less we don't realize. But if you are typically your job involves only selling and nothing else, then your life depends on it, and the more efficient you are, the more better you get eventually. So you need to know what to capture. You need to understand how the customer is placed on that day in that conversation. What signals is he giving? So is he saying, come and meet me tomorrow just for the sake of it, or is he really serious about it? So these are the, let's say, subtle pointers which get added. And we ran this experiment, made some changes to, let's say, the pitch, and the outcome was tremendous. Like we got 50-60% change in the conversion rate from meeting,
Yeah.
to the eventual closure. So that was huge. And then we did
Yeah.
more of those, and then eventually this
So
program was
I'm
rolled
picking up
out.
two
And
things from what you're saying.
uh,
See, one is that the user himself may not know the problems he's facing. So it's like in the example that you're giving me, it's a salesperson because you've given him a checklist of say 10 things to do. So he goes there, he does those 10 things and comes back, and he himself doesn't realize that there is a problem in one of them, or maybe I could do it better. So it is all left to the knowledge and intelligence of that person who's using the product or following the process. The second thing also what I'm hearing you say is that maybe in larger organizations, maybe in smaller organizations, the distance between the person who's in charge and the customer is not as much. But as the organization grows larger and larger, the distance between the customer and the person who's a decision maker is very wide. And so I think at every level what you're saying is that that
yeah,
interaction with the customer needs
true.
to happen. Jay, it's been interesting talking to you because you've gone through these roles of being a part of the innovation team. Then you're building your own product. You have also done sales, means the actual sales in the the core sales, as you might call it. So, putting all this together, uh, uh, can you share one or two messages that you would like to give the listeners who are who are into service operations in some form?
Sure. I think the most important message for all of us
Yeah.
is really listen to the customer. You know, spend some time with them, and even for seniors. So all of us should take some time out and sit with the customer, understand how he's doing, why does he still like you if he likes you,
Yeah.
and those who don't like
Hmm.
you, ask them why they don't like you anymore, what changed. uh, that one thing is going to dramatically change your entire service orientation and that of or people within your organization. So, and when if you are into product or service design, involve your customer beforehand. Do not
Yeah.
assume that he is
Hmm.
going to need what you think he needs. That's all I would say. And these two are like literally game changers in your product and process and
I just add one word more is listening
always.
to the employees whose work eventually impacts the customer. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your time and for sharing your experience. Thank you once again.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Satinder, for having me.